An NFL insider just dropped a bombshell Steelers trade update, and as new reports come out and as the trade deadline inches closer and closer, a huge Steelers trade is imminent, and we're going to break down a brand new report that has dropped surrounding one particular player. But not only that, folks, we have a ton of other news to go over on this episode. But before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. It's the place to be for daily Steelers content every single day. About 67% of you or so who are watching right now aren't subscribed to the channel, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support's been unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, ton of news to go over today. Now, we know the Steelers have been in the market for a wide receiver for a couple of weeks now. The initial report dropped from Adam Schefter. Folks, we have some new reports that have just dropped from another reporter revealing some pretty huge information here. And let's just start with this. Now, see here, Ian Rappaport drops latest Steelers trade update. The Pittsburgh Steelers could be adding another wide receiver and adding one soon. Now, folks, this is pretty exciting. Obviously, we know the Steelers, they were coming off a brutal loss against the Bengals. That left a lot of fans dejected, a lot of fans upset. But they are still in the market and will be trading, at some point at least here, very soon for a wide receiver. And let's dive into the report here. So Steelers are once again looking for a wide receiver. The Steelers have been searching for a second wideout addition after adding DK Metcalf early in the offseason, as we know, pairing him with Calvin Austin as their starters. Austin, of course, has been down with an injury due to his shoulder. And, of course, we know they've been rocking some interesting sets with Metcalf, with some tight ends, and they're looking for another receiver. And reports have come out, they're looking for someone who can, run really, fast and really run some go routes, all those different things, which is funny because DK is not necessarily a great true route runner, but he has crazy physical intangibles. But here's the full report. The Steelers are once again in the market for a receiver. Sources say their offense has thrived by featuring multiple tight ends, but the addition of a speed threat to pair with DK Metcalf would help Aaron Rodgers and the offense. Now, this is huge news because we know Adam Schefter came out and reported this last week, but he is now doubling down, or I guess another report is doubling down on it from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. And this is once again, not necessarily just kind of reiterating the fact that they want another wide receiver, but they're looking for a speed threat. And this is where things start to get interesting. Now, I had a video, I believe it was yesterday, on Rashid Shaheed. He would obviously fit the bill really well, but clearly, despite their, running DK Metcalf with 3 tight ends, they've been doing that a lot. They want to add a speedster, which is funny because Calvin Austin is that, and you have Roman Wilson who kind of gotten shoved to the side here and kind of lost in the spotlight a little bit. But it is interesting. Schefter also went on to say there will be trades made this week because there were trades made last week. You got the Chargers looking for a running back, the Steelers looking for a receiver, and the Eagles are always looking for help. The Browns, alternatively, are buyers and sellers. Now, I'm going to dive into a few different players here. There's a couple key players that have kind of started to come to light in the market. You see here, the Steelers have been linked to multiple wide receivers: A.J. Brown, Jaylen Waddle, Jacoby Myers, and Chris Olave. Now, I had a video on Chris Olave, and Jacoby Myers I'm going to save, and I'll have a full video on him soon. A.J. Brown and Jaylen Waddle are 2 very interesting names. Now, there's been some recent reports coming out that they might not actually be willing to trade A.J. Brown if things don't go well. I'm not going to fully buy those reports just because of the fact that if A.J. Brown is upset, and he clearly is at this point, and Jalen Hurts continues to not throw him the ball, I assume, and most people do, that the Eagles would be at least willing to entertain offers. He's not like he's getting a ton of targets anyway. So A.J. Brown and, of course, Jaylen Waddle. Now, you see in the second paragraph, Pittsburgh hasn't been shy of pursuing a top-tier talent, trying to make sure they add another, another wide receiver to make themselves closer to a Super Bowl. Now, former Bengals star Chad Johnson believes that A.J. Brown would be the best option. And here's the full quote. I know it's a little bit spaced out here, but I'll read it out for you. I'm just throwing that out there because they've always been talking about trades where there's smoke, there's fire. The fact it was even mentioned, things don't turn around for the Eagles, even though they're winning, I think something could happen with the Steelers. So let's dive into A.J. Brown. I had a video on him a few days ago. He is the best wide receiver unequivocally on this list. You could argue Jaylen Waddle, maybe Chris Olave. Neither of those guys are necessarily super close to A.J. Brown. Jaylen Waddle has been very good, especially since Tyreek Hill went down with that horrific injury, and Tua Tagovailoa has been throwing the ball a little bit more. He's turned into their wide receiver 1. But let's look at his stats. Multi-time Pro Bowler. This year, 274 yards, which compared to some of the other guys on the list is not a crazy amount of yards, right? And obviously had some fantastic years with the Eagles. The first couple of years, just a couple of years ago, he's 2 years removed from back-to-back 1,500-yard seasons, essentially, right? 1,496 and then 1,456. So it's been slowly decreasing. We know the Eagles have been, since they got Saquon Barkley, running the ball more. Haven't necessarily been, running the ball as much in the past couple games, but Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown have not been able to get on the same page, and that's why the Steelers make sense for him. However, on the flip side, if you actually watch Steelers games, there's only, for Omar Khan and the front office, there's only so many receptions and targets to be had at this point, right? In the past, the Steelers have run a run heavy offense. We know that. But at the end of the day, like, if AJ Brown comes over, is he going to get a ton of touches? You have DK Metcalf, you have some other guys, and that's where things get interesting, right? And there's already not a ton of balls to be thrown around, in the sense of, if AJ Brown's upset with his 8 targets a game or whatever it is with the Eagles, he might not be happy coming over here and getting 5, getting 6. Now, maybe they decide to use him more. Maybe DK Metcalf takes a step back, which I don't think is going to happen because Rodgers loves throwing to Metcalf. But, like, these are all things to consider. Now, there is the side of, there's a culture built with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have, of course, Mike Tomlin, the front office. If AJ Brown just wants to win, he could come over, kind of be that A-grade wide receiver, pair him alongside DK Metcalf. That's a pretty elite combo, right? And he's not the speediest guy that we'd be talking about, but he's a very interesting one. Now, on the flip side, Jaylen Waddle, I don't think he's going to become available, right? I don't think that's going to happen, but he would be cheaper than AJ Brown. And of course, a lot of this comes down to what the cost will be, right? Is it going to be, first round picks? Is it going to be a crazy amount of picks? I don't think so. And I had a video yesterday, in case you missed it. Feel free to check it out after if you watch this one entirely. It's a very good one on Rashid Shaheed. And Rashid Shaheed would be for basically just moving one round up in the draft, right? So going from having a 4th round pick to a 5th round pick. So it's a 4th for a 5th and Rashid Shaheed. And there's some interesting stuff in there. Very, very interesting one. I would prefer Rashid Shaheed overpaying a ton of assets for a guy like AJ Brown. But in the same vein, if you can go out and get a younger guy like Jaylen Waddle, not that much younger, only a year younger, for a cheaper price, sure. But I don't think the Dolphins would want to do that. He's obviously coming off of back-to-back kind of down years. Like last year, only 744 yards. Again, once he got Tyreek Hill, everything kind of slowed down a little bit for him. He's now back in the spotlight. They don't have Hill, and who knows how long Reek is going to be gone for. It could be a year, could be 2 years. Don't want to speculate on that. So it's going to be interesting. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. A trade is coming, folks, and that's one of the biggest things here. A trade is coming, whether it's a guy like Jaylen Waddle, whether it's going to be someone lower maybe on the board like Jacoby Myers, who I absolutely love. That's the big thing. Steelers in the past haven't been afraid to add top-tier talent. They already traded for Jalen Ramsey in the offseason. They got extended TJ Watt, which hasn't really worked out yet. Not the TJ Watt extension, just the defense in general, especially last game. Like, Jalen Ramsey's been getting killed. But at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see what he's been getting shelled. But at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens here with all of this, with all these new reports. Now, a couple other things before we wrap up here. There was a recent article dropped about how the Steelers don't want to man anyone. And following the brutal loss against the Bengals, there's been a lot of talk about it. The defense has been horrible, about how Mike Tomlin, they need a new offensive coordinator, they need a new defensive coordinator, all these different things. Let's dive into something here. All offseason, Mike Tomlin told us the Steelers were going to use their star-studded cornerbacks and man everyone. He admitted that putting together the defense and acquiring players like Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey had something to do with facing Bengals stars with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But when they have the opportunity to man up, their biggest rival threats against, or biggest receiving threats of the season, they couldn't do it, and it cost them. I mean, the game-winning touchdown was thrown against Jalen Ramsey, right? I think it was T. Higgins or whoever it was, Jamar Chase. The cornerbacks and the defense in general, secondary, needs to be better. Now, whether or not Mike Tomlin's going to adjust, who knows? He's made adjustments in the past. Sometimes he's stubborn. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. The Steelers are still in a very good spot. They have to come out and you have to go ahead and take care of business in your next game, which of course is going to be next Sunday. If you don't, you're going to be in a very peculiar spot. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this. Do you want to see them trade for AJ Brown or Jaylen Waddle? Trade's coming. Keep you up to date. You guys are peace. Cheers.